A lot of Bulls fans, including myself, thought that if Derik Queen was to fall to the Chicago Bulls, they should select him. But per some sources, Derik Queen is not even on the radar of the Chicago Bulls. Is it a smokescreen or is it legit? Y'all know we gonna talk about it and break it all down, but you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. So if you're tuned in with me, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. I've been gone for a couple days, y'all. Your boy had to walk across that stage to get his bachelor's degree. So now I'm right back, ready to talk about Chicago Bulls basketball, and I'm finding out that my man's Derik Queen, who I like, is not even reportedly not even on the radar of the Chicago Bulls. This is coming via Joe Cowley, Chicago sometimes beat writer, sometimes I think Chicago Bulls hater, but nonetheless, hey, he went out there and did some reporting and said that the source, according to a source, Maryland big man Derik Queen is sliding, but still isn't on the Bulls' radar because of growing concerns about his athletic ability and how that fits with Billy Donovan's up-tempo pace. He'll need a private workout with the Bulls to change minds. Now, look, I don't know where the Chicago Bulls are going to go with this, man, to be honest with you. Because when we sit here and we talk about NBA Combine stuff, we break down guys like Rasheed Fleming. We look at people like Thomas Sorbo, even though we're still hearing that the man is still dealing with that foot injury. We even scouted guys like Asa Newell. We even looked at a couple other guys in the Chicago Bulls at one point. It was reported that they have their eyes on Igor Demon. And then now Casey Johnson a couple days ago, last week, pretty much put out there that Drake Powell is somebody that the Chicago Bulls worked out and was very, very impressed. When I look at Derik Queen, I see a player that I really, really like. I felt like my man's Derik Queen can run up and down the court with the Chicago Bulls. Probably not the most athletic big that you see running up and down the court during his time with Maryland, but I thought he was very, very capable. It kind of reminds me of how last season we heard after and going through the draft process, guys talk about Zach Edey and how they expected him to fall into the second round and potentially not get drafted from some people, you know what I'm saying, that I respect. You know what I'm saying? They had their doubts on Zach Edey, but other teams went out there and said, hey, we're going to go out there and get Zach Edey. Now, how did the season go for Zach Edey? I think it was pretty decent. I don't necessarily know where his numbers were during the combine, during the workout, but he eventually got drafted in that first round by the Memphis Grizzlies. And I would say a solid season. Nothing too crazy, just a solid season with a lot of growing to go for Zach Edey. Now, when you look at my man's Derik Queen, I look at a guy that's out there that can do a little bit of everything. I love the offensive game. I love the activity on the defensive end. But there will be some questions, or I had some questions about Derik Queen on about how would he fit with the Chicago Bulls, simply because these guys want to get up and down the court. I personally feel that the Chicago Bulls need a lob threat. That, in my mind, that will help Josh Giddey be the point guard that we need him to be. And then you need a guy that can kind of hold down his own on the defensive side, because we don't have the best defenders in our backcourt in Kobe White and Josh Giddey. So when you look at big men, some guys was out there, more offensively talented like a Derik Queen, more defensively talented like a Thomas Sorbo or Rasheed Fleming, guys like that. Maybe a guy that could bring you a little bit of everything, but not too great, but good enough in a Danny Wolf. But those things were circling around. Now, I will say this about Derik Queen. Very, very concerning things that you heard about him coming out of the combine. This man was either near the bottom or at the bottom, and a lot of major conditioning exercises during the NBA Combine in Chicago a couple weeks ago. The man finished last in lane agility, near the bottom in shuttle run, near the bottom in 3/4 sprint, in this standing vertical. It looked like he couldn't get up. I'm just saying. When you look at the verts and you just go ahead and filter everything from who had the best to the worst, my man was always either at the bottom or near the bottom. And that, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, man. That stuff right there is very, very concerning. But I do have that mindset, like, I don't need my big to be the most athletic big, but let's not get it twisted. We need some athleticism from our big to go out there and help this young team be a little bit more better. And in my mind, in a way that I look at what a big should be bringing for the Chicago Bulls. It's interesting to even talk about it simply because how are the Bulls gonna pivot? Are the Bulls even gonna go for a position of need, or will they go for the best player available? Which is why we heard names like Igor Deming and Drake Powell, two different totally type of guys than what we feel like we need in Bulls Nation. But Derik Queen, man, those combine numbers very, very concerning, especially when you're expecting the guy to get up and down the court and question if he can slide his feet well enough. Can he hold down the paint well enough? I know he's going to be able to cook a little bit on the offensive side, but there's two sides of the basketball game. And on that defensive side, we going to need him. And when it comes to helping Josh Giddey and being able to free things up and allow Josh Giddey to use his superpowers, which is that passing ability, you need a guy that can be a lob threat. I personally believe, strongly believe, that a lob threat would do this Chicago Bulls team justice. Hence why when Daniel Gafford came up in some trade rumors and is being rumored to the Chicago Bulls, or the Chicago Bulls are kind of looking at him a little bit, I was right on board, because I think that we need some type of big that can be a lob threat for the Chicago Bulls. And then on the flip side, on the defensive end, we can gobble up rebounds. And if somebody going to drive into this lane, because the guards are cooking right now, and they will be cooking more so moving forward, you need to be able to either change some shots or block the shots. I believe Derik Queen can block the shots. I believe he can change the shots. But again, we have to marry the workout stuff with the film. Now, I'm just saying, the film looks good, but when you talk about the workout stuff, how much work has he been putting in this offseason to elevate himself? It's always going to be a question heading into the NBA, not just the Chicago Bulls. But we also heard a few things from coming out of from Kevin O'Connor from Yahoo Sports as well, talking about Derik Queen. He went on to say the 20-year-old's draft stock got dinged by some NBA executives at the NBA draft combine in Chicago due to concerns over his conditioning and lack of progress as a shooter. Look, those are the guys that are making the big decisions. And I felt like the shooter was good enough. Me personally, I don't need the big that I expect the Chicago Bulls to have to go out there and shoot a high volume of threes, especially if we're a team that I believe at some point we will make the playoffs. I don't know if that's this upcoming year. I don't know if that's the year after. But if you have that big, I don't need my big to shoot a high volume of threes. I need him to be a present in the paint and in the mid-range area. That's why I need my big to be a presence at, personally. And we know that my man's Derik Queen last year put up 16 and a half points, had 9 rebounds, about 2 assists, 1.1 block, 1.1 steal, while shooting 52% from the field. So the numbers say that he's right there. But again, we got to look at the athletic ability at least a little bit for the style of play that the Chicago Bulls want to play. Now, I will ask this. Considering that the Chicago Bulls want to kind of follow the Indiana Pacers blueprint, when we look at a Miles turnover there, do we look at him as being some crazy athletic big? No, not me personally. But if you do, let me know down in the comment box below, because I don't look at a Miles Turner as being some crazy athlete for the Indiana Pacers. However, he is athletic enough to get his ass up and down that court well enough with the Indiana Pacers to be effective. So that's going to come into play when you talk about Derik Queen to see if, hey, can he get his ass up and down the court in an effective way to help the Chicago Bulls if that was the direction that the Chicago Bulls are trying to go. I have not seen anything right now to say that the Chicago Bulls have brought in Derik Queen for a workout. I don't even know if they're going to bring him in for a workout. It's not the end all be all, but it's something that we'll definitely have to keep our eyes on because if we remember Montes Buzelis, I don't even think they had much communication with him before even selected him. So I don't think that they have to have this type of communication or anything before selecting him. But you would like to see if there's some doubt, bring him in. Let's see what he's made up close and personal for us and get our people right there with him. Get these coaches, get the executives out there, work them out, see how athletic he really is, and to see if he made some type of progress in this. If he was able to, you know what I'm saying, increase his shuttle run or increase the 3/4 sprint or you know what I'm saying, give a better vertical jump and you see a little bit more athleticism out of him with a private workout, that may be something you could go out there, entertain, or keep in the back of your mind and say, hey, if he falls right there, we'll consider him. Maybe not strongly consider him, but we will consider him. So I think that's something that we'll have to look at because if you asking me if it's a smokescreen or if it's legit, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both. You don't necessarily want to tilt your hand out to the, you know what I'm saying, to the other teams around the NBA, especially if you're slotted at 12 and you have a fear that he might go to 10 or he might go before 12 per se. You want to go out there and say, yeah, we don't really much know. So you can go ahead and make, the Chicago Bulls. I don't know if anybody's looking at Chicago Bulls as being this smart ass organization right now to say, hey, Chicago Bulls don't want him. We don't want him. I don't think nobody looking at it like that because if you look at like some other sports, you might be like, oh, snap. The 49ers don't want this player. Yeah, that means something wrong with him. Bill Belichick a couple years ago was letting guys go trade him. Oh, Bill Belichick don't want him. Nah, we'll just stay away from him too. And like, it was crazy because Muggs would be like, Bill Belichick don't want Malcolm Butler. Nah, something wrong with Malcolm Butler then. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think organizations look at the Chicago Bulls like that. So I think there could be some legitimacy behind this stuff about him not being on the radar for the Chicago Bulls based on how they've drafted in the past. That's just me. You look at Julian Phillips, athletic kid, you know what I'm saying? Guy has some talent, needs some work. You look at Patrick Williams, athletic guy, has some talent, needs some work. You look at Dalen Terry, athletic, has some talent, needs some work. You see where I'm going with this? Now, maybe if you look at like second round picks like Adama Sanogo or something like that, you'd be like, all right, maybe not too crazy athletic, but something that's there and needs some work. So it's going to be interesting to see. So I think that it could be a smoke screen, but I also believe that it has some legitimacy behind it simply because, again, with the way that they want to play basketball, you need your big to be able to run his ass up and down the court. And I don't necessarily know how they are looking at Derik Queen. I don't necessarily know if they just want to go with the best available, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Chicago Bulls move forward with knowing all this stuff right now and not being on the radar. It's okay. But if he falls there and you didn't do your homework, that's a problem. For me, that's a problem. If Derik Queen gets there, if you get to pick number 12 and Derik Queen is still on the board, and you didn't do your due diligence to say, hey, he could potentially be a Chicago Bull, especially with the talent that he has on the offensive side of the ball, that's a problem for me. I feel like regardless, with the best players that came into this draft pool, you should be doing your due diligence if they fall to you. You know what I'm saying? If they fall to you, you should supposed to be doing your due diligence and talking with your guys on the organization and within the staff to see who fits the team best and what can you get out of a guy? What is the floor of this player already? And what can we catapult into with this player on the team? Because again, I don't necessarily think you need the greatest or the most athletic big to be effective in the NBA, but some athleticism is required, especially for me, if I want to see Josh Giddey have a lob threat that he can run pick and roll with. And what better guy that you can run pick and roll with a guy like Derik Queen? Maybe not the most athletic, but definitely got some offensive talent that can exploit defenses if they are not on their P's and Q's during the basketball game. So we'll see. We'll see. But Yeah, man, I appreciate y'all tuning in to another episode of Shy Boys Podcast, man. That is it for me today. Leave your comments, feedback, and everything down below in the comment box. Let's chop it up. Your boy is back again. Walk across that stage, got that diploma, that bachelor's. So y'all go ahead and show some love, man. But I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always see red. And y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. For sure.
Cognac. Gang.